Okay, so a lot of you probably don't know who Vendasta is, and this session, I guess, is about Beyond Search, the whole conference, and this one in particular is about reputation and sales management, and how can reputation help you? I think it says in there, how can it help you understand what your customers and advertisers want and users want? So I thought I'd give you some insight into what we've learned along the way by talking a little bit about the sort of the evolution of our company, Vendasta, and a lot of the insights that we learned along the way. So first off, what does Vendasta do? Well, we're primarily a white label sales and marketing automation company, primarily in North America, but just starting to come to Europe, that helps our partners, which are media companies and digital agencies, sell more of what they already sell, plus give them a suite of digital products that they can easily sell to local businesses. But we didn't always do that. We started by making a presence and a reputation management solution, so we were sort of a point solution provider, and we would sell that product to small businesses through our partners, which were media companies primarily and digital agencies. And so along the way, so why did we even start with reputation and presence? I think that's been covered off pretty well here at this show. Everyone has sort of demonstrated that those two things are foundational to the consumer buying journey. But I'm going to go through a little example of why we thought that and why we started with those products. So when a consumer today wants to purchase something, what's the first thing they do? They pull out their phone or they go online and they do a search. And if they don't find your business, they're going to find the next best one. Everyone's heard the joke that what's the best place to hide a dead body? It's on the second page of the Google search results. So once they do find you, then they're going to find what your reputation is. So is your site responsive? Is there a phone number and an address? Is there a map? Are your social profiles there? Can they see reviews? So this is what they think about you, and this is why we think these things are foundational. So. And why is that? That goes back to an idea that sort of Google sort of came out with called the zero moment of truth. Back in the old days, when you spent money on advertising in the yellow pages and in the newspaper, the moment of truth was did your till ring, and that's all you could really measure with. That was pre-internet. After the internet, the way that it works today is that people, they see some stimulus, and then what do? They search and they research. And they have made a decision to purchase from you long before they actually come to your physical location. So once they're in the location, they buy the product or use the product, and then they talk about it afterwards. Maybe if it's a good experience, they tweet about it or they put it on Facebook, and that's called the second moment of truth, and that in turn becomes somebody else's first moment of truth. They say, oh, my friend had a good experience there, I'll go buy that same car. So that's why we chose to integrate at those 2 points. So we built a reputation and a presence solution for that zero moment of truth. And for the second moment of truth, we have a social marketing solution. So that's our past. What we found was that, as our partners started to sell, so we have, over in North America, over 1,000 partners, and they service over 350,000 SMBs, or local businesses. And so we had the good fortune of being able to see when they sold, how did these factors correlate? How did all these, reputation and presence factors correlate to an actual purchase? And so that's what I'm going to share a bit with you today. And this is why some of the things we discovered, weren't quite what you might think. Probably a lot of folks that are actually on the street already know these things, but the reasons for purchase often don't correlate to necessarily a need in a small business's life. So just because they have a bad website doesn't mean they're more likely to buy a website, or if no website, that they're likely to buy a website. It doesn't work out that way. In fact, those might be harder people to sell a website to if they don't have one already. They don't need one. Or if they have bad reviews, do they need reputation management? Or if they already spend money on advertising, will they spend more or less? So we looked at all those factors, and what we discovered were there were 3 main factors about why people buy. The number one factor was, were they ready? You guys know in a business life, likely or your salespeople know that these guys are time-starved small businesses. they've got lots of things going on there. You know, they might be waiting for their delivery to come, or staff might be not showing up. They've got issues with their accountant. They have to be ready. So the number one thing was that business is actually in the mindset that they're looking for a solution. That's the number one thing. The second thing was how close that the salespeople contact them to that particular moment in time. And then the third thing was, could you deliver a product and a service in the manner and delivery and service model that they wanted? Do they want a low price DIY? You know, do it yourself and price are almost synonymous. Or do they want a more complete do it for me solution that they want someone to manage for them? So I'm going to explore that just a little bit more. So this actually piggybacks well with the last sort of talk that was up here. So when you look at the different the realities of SMBs, you see that the very small businesses, 1 to 4, this is all Kelsey data, 1 to 4 employees, they spend about $2,600 a year. You know, 63% of all businesses are in this category, at least in the US. I don't know how that translates to Europe. I'll have to find out. The preferred sales model for these guys is DIY, and they don't really value the in-premise sales rep all that much. And so, you know, what we found here many times is they don't have a lot of money, so they pay with time. On the other side of the coin, when you get to a business that's a larger business, over 10 employees, they have a real business. They spend more money each year, and they don't have the time, so they spend with dollars. And so they value the in-premise sales rep, and they want a solution that's either do it for me or they can participate and do it with me. So that's sort of the realities of the SMB. So because of that, you know, we realized that a lot of our media company partners didn't really have a product problem. What they had was a sales problem. So they didn't have the right model to be able to sell products at the right, you know, DIY all the way through to DIFM. They didn't have the right mix of products. It was hard to train on them. The field's cluttered. So we built a marketing automation platform, and that's where we, you know, headed. So how do we do that? So the way that we do it is based on a phone number or the name of the business in the city. We're able to collect a whole bunch of information semantically on the web. So we're able to get online listings and see how accurate they are compared to their, you know, the people in their vertical. We do comparisons against competitors, social marketing, reviews. I don't have to read all those things. SEM spend, we can show them what they're retargeting, what their website looks, if it's responsive, and what it looks like on a desktop. We bundle that up into what we call a snapshot report, and we send it out, and then we market little pieces of that over top in an evergreen way, so they continually market to their customers. And as they do that, as the business interacts with those emails, as they open the emails or they, you know, click through and interact with that stuff, we score the SMB. And when we determine through an algorithm whether they're ready to buy or not. So once we determine that they're ready to buy, we deliver that to the sales rep. And then the sales rep, we can measure the response time, and what we've learned is the quicker they respond, and you know, it's really hard to get, can any of you guys get your sales rep to respond within 15 minutes? Because that's what you got to do. You got to be able to respond within 15 minutes to get a high close rate, and it's dramatic, the actual difference. So I want to go through a few benefits of this sort of big data marketing. Number one is it dramatically lowers the cost of sales. So, and it does that by, you know, allowing the salesperson to not, I don't know if this translates either, but not to boil the ocean. So not to, you know, you don't have to search for a needle in a haystack. You can identify what customers are actually in the mindset and they're ready to engage and buy. Secondly, you can solve real world problems. So like Neil talked this morning, you're not in the car outside thinking, geez, I wonder how I can do my research on this business. What problem do they have? You already know from the hot lead that what they were interested in was presence management. Or maybe they were interested in SEM. And so you can go in there and speak to that particular problem and not waste their time. And then thirdly, you know, relevant data equals more engagement. So how many of you guys watch TV? I know you're all tired. Come on, put your hands up. You all watch TV. How many of you guys watch advertisements? Just Greg. So, but how many of you watch advertisements for, you know, when the World Cup is on or the Super Bowl's on? You probably all watch them then, right? Everybody watches those. And so what we found is that using data about the business that's relevant, timely, and about them is like using a Super Bowl ad all the time. And so you can see that the open rates on these emails are fantastic. It's really almost inbound conversion. So the second part of this big data benefit is that you get some really good sales management. So this is how it ties to sales management, Greg. Because you can see the average response time. So we can now tell how long it takes for that salesperson to actually respond to the interested SMB. We can see the churn by salesperson. So all the products you sell, even print, we can see, oh, why does this salesperson have a different churn rate than the other? Maybe he's telling stories. Anybody have that problem? You can also see the close rate by salesperson to see what's happening there. So this is important because given the market realities, traditional business models are they're definitely, at least in North America, they're under attack. So on the low end, you've got folks that are starting with domains and other things, but they're not staying there. They're moving up the chain. They're selling more and more. Those small businesses are becoming familiar with those folks. They're gaining trust, and they're starting to move up. And at the high end, you've got some, pure play models that are actually digging in and taking away some of the gravy. So if you've ever, if you read Clayton Christensen, Innovator's Dilemma, it's not a good idea to give up the low end. It's a really bad idea. So you have to make sure that you're in there and able to sell, so when those small customers turn to big customers, you're there for them. So in summary, maybe I'll just leave you with 4 things and just ask you a few questions. I don't know how many of you guys ask yourself, how many of you are using big data marketing at all? How many of you are, doing that? It'd be good. That's great. How many of you know when your salespeople know when those businesses are ready to buy? And do you know how long it takes for those salespeople to contact them? That's fantastic if you know that stuff. And then the last thing, ask yourself if you're able to offer them the right solution and the right service model. Can you offer everything from potentially a freemium product with a self-serve option all the way through to the high ARPU models and the different solution? So that's all I had today. I hope that was helpful.